If you live in California, you know that buying a handgun isn't as simple as just picking the best one for you because of the roster. Hi, I'm Dakota Adelphia. I'm a Rangemaster certified instructor and I run the San Diego chapter of A Girl and a Gun. Today we're diving into the top 5 concealed carry guns on the California roster for 2025. In case you're new to the concept, California has something called the Roster of Handguns certified for sale. Since 2001, no handgun can be sold by a dealer in California unless it's been approved by the Department of Justice. There are some exceptions like private party transfers and certain single action revolvers, but for the vast majority of Californians, this roster determines which guns you can legally buy new from a store. To find the roster, you can visit the California DOJ's website. Once you navigate to the website, you'll be able to search by recently added or by manufacturer. We don't have access to some of the most commonly recommended concealed carry guns like the Glock 43X, Glock 48, Smith & Wesson Bodyguard 2.0, Walther PDP, or the Taurus GX4. But that doesn't mean we're completely out of luck. There are still solid choices available. So let's break it down and talk about what's actually available and which options work best for concealed carry. How do we narrow it down? Let's take a look at some key factors that should guide your decision. First up, concealability. If you're getting this gun, you want to make sure that you can actually conceal it. That's where the concealment percentage comes in play. If you'd like to get your concealment percentage with your chosen handgun, go watch our concealment percentage video. I've picked 5 popular handgun options, and these are my concealment percentages for each. Next, we've got holster and accessory compatibility. Some guns have more holster and aftermarket support than others. You'll want to determine how you're going to carry this firearm. A belt-mounted holster, an Enigma, and then check out the aftermarket support. Do you have options for quality holsters? If you want to mount an optic on it, does it offer compatibility with the accessory you'd like? Before you make a purchase, we'd highly recommend going to the range and renting the options to determine if the gun you're leaning toward actually fits you properly. Don't worry too much about how the gun feels in your hand. Generally, that has us focusing on things that don't matter or are easily fixable, like how sandpapery the grip texture is, or how the trigger feels on our trigger finger. We want to focus more on how it fits our hand. We can always adjust the grip texture, and we're likely to get used to the trigger. When we're thinking about how well our hands fit a particular gun, there's a couple of things I like to check for. The first one that I'll check is the ability to close the slide. Whether I use the slide latch or I rack the slide, it's always going to be important that I can reach the latch in order to lock the slide back. Next, I'll make sure that I can manage the magazine release. I don't have to use my dominant hand thumb. If my dominant hand thumb can't reach the mag release, I can use my left hand thumb to press the mag release. Lastly, I like to confirm that my finger can reach the trigger. If you have a firearm where your trigger finger can only come in this much, that is going to be very challenging for you to shoot accurately. Ideally, you want a trigger reach that looks like this, or even like this. You want your trigger finger to be able to interact with the trigger on the pad of the finger, not just using the tip. When I'm checking trigger finger reach, I'm going to close the slide and then ensure that my finger can interact with the trigger using the pad. Ideally, I want enough space between my trigger finger and the frame of the gun for a pen or a pencil to fit. I don't want the entire portion of my finger to be pressed tightly against the gun while my finger is on the trigger. Next category we want to think about is performance metrics. How reliable is it? What's the recoil like? How fast can I get my sights back on my target? As a side note, oftentimes rentals have been well loved and shot a ton. It's very likely to be easier to manipulate the rental firearm. When you make your purchase, don't feel discouraged if it instantly feels way harder out of the box. That is totally normal, and once you've shot a few hundred rounds through the gun, it should start to feel easier. Once you've made your selection, you'll want to shoot at least a couple hundred rounds through the gun to ensure that your particular firearm does not have any mechanical or sight alignment issues. While these issues aren't very common with the 5 firearms we've listed, we still want to be sure we trust the reliability of the firearm before we trust our life with it. You'll also want to ensure that your hollow point of choice cycles through the firearm properly. Then designate one of your magazines as your concealed carry magazine. That one will get special treatment. Instead of training with it and dropping it on the ground when you're practicing on the range, you'll keep it safely stored in your range bag. The Glock 19 Gen 3. So we've got the Glock 19 up first. So this is a Glock 19 Gen 3, which is the only one available on the roster. And you'll see here we've got some finger grooves. Having the finger grooves on the front strap can be difficult for some folks whose fingers don't fit in those grooves perfectly, but you can have them shaved down to make it more comfortable if that's a problem for you. Next up, we're gonna talk about the Hellcat Pro. Personally, when I took this gun out of the box, I thought it felt a little bit boxy in my hands, but there is a Langdon Tactical Hogue grip that helps the ergonomics and makes it feel a little bit more comfortable for me personally. As I mentioned earlier, there are some things that we may just not like about how the gun feels, but we can often fix those things or make adjustments to make it more comfortable for us. Last, we're going to talk about the Sig 365 line. The Sig 365 is a modular grip, so you can put a lot of different grips on this particular slide. This is a bore sight grip module, which really enhances the shootability of this gun for me personally. The 365 is available in California, as is the 365X and a few other variants of the 365 line. Let's just acknowledge the obvious. Yes, the roster is frustrating. Yes, it's unfair. And yes, a lot of great options are off limits to us California folks. I know some people are thinking right now, why don't you just leave, move to a state that doesn't have a roster? The thing is, for me and for a lot of gun rights activists living in California, we believe that moving out of the state emboldens the anti-Second Amendment politicians to write even worse legislation. If everyone who loves the shooting sports and believes in the Second Amendment leaves, there won't be anyone left to fight the good fight. And the policies that are put in place in California find their ways to other states. People moved from California to Colorado, but the anti-2A policies have found their way to Colorado and New Mexico, and, well, you get the point. The more we fight these anti-gun policies in California, the less it will embolden other states to follow suit. If you're not already, I highly recommend supporting organizations that are fighting for our Second Amendment rights. They're working hard to challenge these restrictive laws. Carrying a gun adds inherent risk to our lives, so we want to make sure that we are following best practices to do it as safe as we can. To learn more about concealed carry, safety, and best practices, go to the Learn drop-down menu at PHLsterholsters.com.